What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Asante. This is my Honda S2000 that I was taking on the Speed Ventures event. This was a couple years ago. Every year Speed Ventures hosts one track day here in Vegas, and this is pretty much my lap out there. The Honda S2000 is probably one of my favorite cars to definitely drive out there. It's a real experience, and I've taken a couple other cars. Like one of the other cars that I've taken was my 240SX. That was back when it was like a stock KA, so it only had like 140 horsepower, so nothing too crazy. But you know, the Honda S2000 is like a big step in that. Double wishbone suspension, 240 horsepower all motor. It's really special. This one I don't really have too much done to it. Pretty much the only thing I really did was a Mishimoto oil cooler, and then I have like fuel suspension, and then I did some racing brake pads. One of the biggest issues when you come out on track is the brakes, especially in the S2000. They really under-braked the car from the factory, probably trying to save on cost, which is respectable. I mean, you don't really think about what the S2000 comes with as a whole package. Just has a lot to offer, so I understand where they cheaped out, but I really do wish they would have at least spent a couple more bucks on the brakes, So the rear brake disc is a solid rear rotor, so its ability to dissipate heat really isn't that well. So on my car, I upgraded it with the Sean Riley RX-8 rear brake package. Pretty much you replace the whole entire rear braking system. You go with like some Mustang rotors and then RX-8 calipers, and then I'm keeping the stock fronts. And then pretty much with that system, the only thing I did after that was just put on some racing brake pads from G-Lock. The pads are some of the most important things when it comes to the brakes. A lot of people, they put on some racing pads, they think, oh, they're good to go. But there's different qualities to braking pads. Like, you really want to make sure you spend the extra money, and honestly probably get the best ones that you can afford, because nothing's worse than when you're driving and the brakes aren't working. We're not even just going to talk about safety, because that's probably the obvious point, but when you're on track and then your brakes start to like vibrate and fade, it takes away from the experience. At that point, you can't even push the car hard. You can't figure out where your skill set, you can't really find the limits of your skill set, and that's probably the biggest bother about racing on like some cheap pads or anything like that. Because when I go on track, I mean, first of all, to go on track is pretty expensive, right? I mean, the cost to get in isn't too bad, but really it's all the prep. You gotta make sure your tires are perfect. You gotta do like the brake fluid and all these things just to get on track. And then if you go out there and you fade your brakes, pretty much your day's done. And no one wants that. So like, if you guys ever do any kind of track days, definitely make sure you spend the time, do some research, figure out what brakes people are using for your car, and definitely invest into that. The other mod that I did was the Mishimoto oil cooler. Probably one of the most important things, keeping the oil temps down when you're on track, because obviously everything's kind of getting hot. The brakes are getting hot, the coolant's getting hot, oil's getting hot. Anything that you can keep cool can help preserve the motor. It kind of prevents like oil. I think the term might be aeration or cavitation, something along those lines. But when things start to get hot, the viscosity of the oil tends to break down, and then after that, it no longer provides protection. So that's one of the biggest reasons why we want to keep everything cool. But the best part about the S2000 versus other cars, the S2000 is one of those cars that you could just push right out the box. Like, you really don't need too many mods. The motor is fully hand built from the factory. It really is race inspired. It comes with double wishbone suspension. There's really not much you have to do to the car. Just like a couple of basic maintenance mods, and then pretty much it's ready to party. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I bought an S2000. You get all these other cars, and like you pretty much have to completely rebuild the whole car just to go out on one track day. It's crazy. But with the S2000, pretty much right out of the box, it's ready to go. Like the shifter feels great. My motor is always. The shifter feels great. Motor is always on point. Like everything's race inspired. You really don't have to worry about anything. Just make sure the oil's topped off. For the most part. And it's just one of the best cars. And I really wanted a seat time car. I didn't want a car that I would have to go and like work on all the time. Oh, this breaks or that breaks. I mean, unfortunately, this 2000 does have a couple of weak points, kind of speaking back to that braking situation. Like the differential is probably one of the weakest things, and the transmission, wow, it does feel fantastic. I don't think I've driven any other car with a better feeling transmission than the S2000. It really is. The reviewers, they're not just talking out, it really is that good. But the only downside of the transmission in the S2000 is it's just not that strong. It can support probably about 400 horsepower or so. Man, after that, it kind of becomes like a ticking time bomb. But for stock power, that's where the S2000 really shines. Everything about the S2000 from the factory is perfect. It pretty much can go out there and just do lap after lap. It's only when you start adding power that's when the systems start to break down. Like the engine can only support so much power, but the real issue with that is heat management. It's really difficult to keep the heat, especially when you start doing like turbocharging and all that kind of stuff. So your cooling mods definitely have to be on point. But when you keep the car stock, it really is special because it just becomes a seat-time monster. And, that's one of the biggest reasons why I bought it. This was the first track I ever actually raced on, and this turn right here, this is probably the scariest turn when you're out there. You're going high speed, and sometimes the car can kind of get a little bit loose. So I'm usually always kind of taking it a little bit easy right there, and this is a really hard braking zone. You gotta really transfer a lot of weight when you're going into that turn. Though, in the comments section, definitely let me know what kind of cars are you guys driving out on track. Like, kind of tell me what was maybe your first track experience that you drove on that you'll never forget. This was mine. And it's a pretty decent track. It's really flat. So that was like one of the things that they were telling me in the drivers meeting. It's really flat. Like there's no real banks or anything like that. So it can kind of be a bit mesmerizing when you're trying to figure out when you're supposed to brake or, plan things out. And the other thing that they were talking about was they're like, do not go off course. Like, out of all the things, like, you do not want to go off course, because pretty much, well, it doesn't seem that bad. Once you go off course, it just eats up everything. On one of my other cars, I had a welded diff, and that was on my 240. I had a welded diff, and I came out here, and the diff pretty much broke. The welds broke. So it's not like the car did anything crazy. I heard the noise, and I was just like, okay, let me just pull off. So the only thing I did was just pull off and drive into the side of the road, and even just doing that, like, my bumper got damaged, this got damaged, that got damaged, and I was like, dang, I didn't even do anything. What I did was just drive over the dirt. Yeah, so definitely, if you do ever come out here, definitely do not go off-road, that's for sure. Yeah, you're most likely gonna break something. You know, I don't even have a splitter or anything like that on that car. I'd be definitely worried if I did. This is the longest straight on the track, and yeah, usually I hit around 100 or so. One of my biggest plans is actually go out and hit Laguna Seca one of these days. Like, that's one of the tracks I've raced in, like Forza Motorsport and stuff like that. So hopefully one day I'll be able to hit that track. I heard about the 100-foot drop, which is pretty crazy. Alright guys, well, that's pretty much all I have for today. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. Hope to see you guys on the next one. Have a blessed day. And, you know, just the usual, like, comment, subscribe. Appreciate you guys.